Well, that's our presentation. Now we'd like to open it up to you for any type of questions that you may have tonight. We have plenty of people here to address your questions, either at the district level or at a building level or a program level or you name it. So feel free. We're not that good. We presented a lot tonight. You surely have a question.
Recycle books or materials from previous years, or looking into, instead of going to field trips that will cost more money, maybe going to free days on museums so that we can just pay for the transportation, any kind of initiatives that will help parents so that we continue not leaving any child behind because just their parents cannot pay 3 field trips, as the economy gets worse.
By the way, we are recording the audio here, and we will be putting everything on the web along with some of the pictures tonight, so the community that members can view, hear our presentation, and also see some of the video that was presented tonight. So that's why we're giving you the mic as you ask a question. Good question. First, as far as what we're doing locally in the district with regards to the economy, we're well aware of the impact that the economy has had on many of our families. A good example, we do offer a multitude of summer classes, enrichment classes, and we also have programs for our kids at risk. And I know Carol Bennett, why don't Carol come here? You can speak on behalf of this since you're the expert. And she pretty well runs the summer school program, and she can talk a little bit about what we can do there, maybe some other things that we do for families.
One of the things that we do in the summer school is called Switched On to Learning, and it's for students that are at risk or that we consider have made some progress, and we want to make sure that that progress continues over the summer. So our teachers actually develop lists, and that occurs at all 3 buildings. I'll talk for all 3 of us at each grade level, and then we contact parents, and they're invited to participate in this special summer class at a cost of, it does have a cost of $250. Because we include transportation for those students to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to get here. Fortunately for us, we have been the recipient of some grants, so that we have applied to the Brennan Amantorp Foundation for grants. Our own Fremont Education Foundation has supplied us with money for this, as well as the Hawthorne Women's Club has, Hawthorne Woods Women's Club has also given us funds to that, so that if parents cannot afford that program that we have, we are able to allow students to come, even though they can't give us the money. We have money from other sources. So that's one of the things we've done to reach out to the community and make sure that we are also encouraging those parents to not sign up because it's a funding issue, because we'll find other ways for them to participate. You also mentioned field trips, and let me just touch a little bit on that for our parents that aren't able to afford field trips. Most of our grade levels are only allowed 2, so I heard you mention 3, so let me just clarify that. 2 per year. And if there is a funding cost that is a problem for parents, our PTO has stepped up over the past 5 years that I know of, for sure, and given us funds for those students to still be able to attend field trips so that it's not a burden, no overburden on any parents. But with the economy, I know that's already been in talks in my building about what we need to pay attention to, what we're asking for parents as well. So does that address your question a little bit? Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we do want to acknowledge that, and if any parent really needs some financial assistance as far as tuition, payments, where we can work with the parent to assist them, please call the district office. please call the building principal. Everything's confidential, so you don't have to worry about anything because the goal is we want every child to have the same experiences no matter what, and that's what we're here for. And the Board of Education and administration are very cognizant of the economy. Despite rising costs, we've held the lid on any tuition costs in the district. We held the lid on any activity fee increases, and we held the lid on lunch fees. Andy worked very well with our vendor to ensure that the lunch fees stay reasonable and that the vendor would actually assume additional costs that go beyond the revenue that we would generate. All of that goes together to get families through this rough time, some families through this rough time. But, we always work together. We're always here to help one another, and we do understand that. So feel free to call the district office or billing principal. That's what we're here to do in regards to your question. Other questions? I feel like I'm on TV here, right?
As we are seeing the number of students enrolled in the 3 schools, I also saw another number in the middle school. It's the year it was built. I saw the 1957 on the middle school. Is that the provision for the students over there? Is it because of the old building? Is there any plans for improving the construction on this one, or how the facilities inside the school is adequate enough for the students?
Okay. My understanding is are you concerned with regards to how the students are within the certain aspects of that building, or what? I'm not totally catching your.
Yeah. Obviously, the number of enrollments for the middle school would have been increased since 1957. So the size of the school and the facilities inside, like right from the heating and to any other facilities. So we have the new building for the intermediate school, which is recently built. So I'm just asking how it's going to be good for the students over there. Is there any plans to improvements internally or constructing a new building for that?
The haves and have-nots, supposedly, huh? Obviously, new school. But you should have seen the middle school a couple years ago, right, Pam? We invested about $5.5 million in renovating the middle school. It's totally been revamped. Probably it has the best kitchen and cafeteria in the district. The media center, revamped science rooms, art room, you name it. We did a lot of totally revamping the old system. There was no air conditioning in there. It's now air conditioned. And that took a lot of time and effort to go through an older facility to implement and put in air conditioning units. So a lot of interior work has been done to bring that school up to standards. I want to commend the middle school administration. They actually got the kids involved with the color scheme. If you go in the middle school, there's a lot of bright colors there. And they correlate with the Character Counts program. Despite some aspects of that building, it's very usable space. The smaller students, the 6th graders, are in the older wing, which used to be the school back then, K-8 back then. And because they have structured the building in pods, the flow of the building is very good as far as the capacity of that building and the students that utilize it. 2 gyms. We do have outdoor space. There's a few things. Some of the newer schools, let's say middle school, would have perhaps an auditorium that we do not have. But as far as what needs to occur in a middle school for the students to learn, they have it. They have everything they really need to have as far as any supplies. And the amount of money that the Board of Education devoted through this construction project that we've just completed to upgrade that facility. It's far above what it was if you saw that facility 2 or 3 years ago, or when I walked in the district. I couldn't believe it was all gray, no air conditioning, and today it's definitely up to standards. All the standards that it has to be, it's up to standards. Obviously, when you have a school that's been built in 57, it's been built in 57. Classroom space at that time is a lot smaller. It takes more space to educate a child now. But at the same time, we keep the class sizes within reason, so they're not, cramping in that area. So if you look at a lot of facilities of that age, I think we should be proud of what the commitment the Board of Education, the community has had through the years to keep that original facility going and utilizing it as best we can. What will happen in the future is it's up in the air, but it's not too bad, to be honest. Other questions, yes?
Yeah, my question is related to, as you know, in the U.S. we have a pretty good shortage of people in engineering, and I'm not really, what I'm trying to understand is kind of the next wave of kids. Are they, because what I found with my children, I have to start them very early in their interest in science and that, and what concerns a lot of people, of course, is we go through our training programs in school, we're training a lot of different areas. But I really wonder if it wasn't for us parents that were help instill this science thinking and that, would they continue? Because I see a lot of the children that don't know what they want to do when they're in high school. They don't know where they want to go in college. And this is the kind of thing that sort of develops actually when you're in grade school. You shouldn't be when you're in high school. I still don't know what I want to do in my senior year. And this is, I think, one of the fundamental issues that we have just in general in our U.S. school system. And I guess I would like to see, for example, you have the reading programs to help children with reading, and I think the example there is I think the school district could also help provide a framework for children, for parents, before they even reach school, because I think a lot of parents are doing it based on their own judgment and what they learn. I think that's also information that can be helpful. And again, because you have to have good reading skills and enjoyment of reading even before you get into school. And then that'll help out the programs that are helping the kids that are having trouble with reading. So if they're starting early reading, that helps them also get interested in science and engineering type fields very early without pressuring them or making them feel that that the parent is forcing them. Because I've seen many cases of that where the parent is like, oh, no, you have to do this, but it needs to be the kid enjoys it. And again, that helps in the mathematics. I haven't heard, in a lot of schools, I haven't heard as well that, and I think a lot of people don't understand this until they get to college, but how mathematics is actually used for explaining nature, not just about this is how you do some math. And I think that's another area where children don't understand that. I don't even think a lot of them understand that even in high school. So I think this is another big area that is they use physics and engineering without knowing all the math. This is how they develop this understanding of nature without knowing all the calculus and all that. And then they get very excited about biology. So all those kind of things, like I say, it starts all very early you're not necessarily pushing a program that you have to do it. It's part of the philosophy, and I did see this philosophy. And that's all part of that big picture. So I'll just, maybe sometime I think maybe there's maybe a particular spot on your website, maybe, just kind of this philosophical, how this affects the whole plan. Because once they get out of 8th grade and they're moving into high school, it's kind of like a discontinuation with whatever was happening here, and now they're into another system. So we need like a continuous flow of education.
Yeah, thank you. And I think some of the demonstration like tonight with the use of technology and integrating it with math and also poetry, and we see that, and at least I see it throughout the whole district, especially early elementary, intermediate. They're out in the back 40. We have back 40 for nature, and they go out there and actually see nature when they're doing science units. And those type of processes where you try to get the children to learn in a way that is natural, to continue their curiosity to learn, to want to learn more, and it's not a chore and that sort of thing. And I really feel that is a strong component of the educational philosophy here at Fremont. We do obviously have to teach specific skills and that sort, but bringing that into the students in the real world, of what's occurring on the real world, and having them connect to that, and the field trip center on that, and you name it. I think our teachers do a great job of doing that, to keep that going. And from administrative level, myself, I'm involved monthly with all the feeder superintendents that feed into Stevenson High School and the high school. We meet on a monthly basis. In fact, this past year, Dr. Zimmer and all this. In fact, we met all of the administrators, the director of technology, the director of business, assistant superintendents, principals have been involved in coordinating throughout that whole consortium curricular initiatives and unison. And we've now adopted a uniform process to review our curriculum throughout the whole consortium at the same year for a change, which helps. That doesn't mean we're going to adopt all the same materials, but we're all looking at everything the same way. And as far as Mundelein High School is concerned, we've seen tremendous movement with the high school to help coordinate the curriculum with the feeder districts, both at the principal's level, assistant superintendent's level, but also at the individual classroom level. We're seeing that also move in a very positive direction for the benefit of our students. So, but your point's well taken. Yeah, thank you.
His question made me think about career education, and has Fremont ever considered Thomas Middle School in Arlington Heights for their 8th graders has an optional, like I'm not sure exactly what they call it, career thing, where when you do it, then they shadow, they're accessing online databases for the goals. Now my son goes to Stevenson, so I know they have, that type, but have we ever considered that kind of stuff?
That's the middle school question or Dr. Zimmer question. I can't answer that one.
That's a great question. In our related studies program a few years ago, we had a whole career education class. We weren't able to continue that. I think it's a program that we need to look back into to have students have an opportunity to do more of that career ed. I think in social studies they have an opportunity to do some investigating of that. But it's probably something we should continue to look into to see what else we can do, because there's tons of resources out there now. And certainly in our technology, too, a little bit in there, they're getting a little bit of their career education there, too. So we do have some resources in the district, but something that we could probably look at or expand. And if you have an idea of a program or somewhere else that I could be in contact with, I'd be happy to look at it.
Clearly you were talking a lot about the RTI initiative, and that's going to be a major focus for you going forward. A couple of you talked about the social-emotional component as well, and that you were really going to be trying to implement that in the future. So I was just wondering if there's any initiatives that you guys already have in place or that you're looking to put into place possibly next year regarding the social-emotional component.
Boy, you really hit on something that we are definitely right in the midst of, and I think Ms. Bennett has been involved on that committee.
Well, I have been involved in the consortium level for the social emotional learning standards, and so we are studying at a consortium level. But I can actually tell you that the social emotional learning standards really tie in right now a lot to character education, which we have a very strong program in all three of our buildings. At the elementary building, we do a program called Piecing Together a Caring Community, which is based on 10 character traits, which feeds right into the Character Counts program, which the intermediate school and the middle school do. They both do that program. It's talked about every day. There's a pledge in each of our buildings about how to treat other students. So we're finding that we are able to implement the social emotional learning standards right through our character education program. You know, that being said, yes, the RTI model does include the social emotional learning standards, and we have started to look at some additional things that we can do to make sure that if intervention is needed for those students, that it's definitely being addressed. That being said, we also have our social workers that are available in each of our three buildings that are integral to this whole process for us. So I feel good about the process that we're going through, and it's nice to talk with everybody in the consortium and see what everybody else is doing to look at what the state standards is doing. They are now looking at retooling the social emotional standards and working with CASEL, which is the big social emotional learning standards community, and the state is working with them. So tying it all together, we should be making some gains, more gains in that in the next year, but we're making good progress, and we really do have strong character education programs, which helps us with all of that. So.
Hi, my question is more probably for middle school again. You talked about the three different tiers that you maintain in terms of where students are at in their learning. And I guess my question is could you explain a little bit more operationally how that works throughout the year as students are looking at a particular subject and they're actually picking it up pretty quickly in that same class? Do you have to move, the other tiered people to a different class, or do they get the same exams, the same quizzes, the same homework? So just a little bit explanation as to how that works operationally throughout the year for the three tiers for middle school.
That's a wonderful question. I will say that we are just in the process of beginning some of this, so I may not be able to fully answer all of the tiers right now. If we were to take reading as an example, all of the students are universally screened with the Ames Web 3 times a year. So every student in the school gets a comprehension test as well as a fluency test, depending on where they score there, as well as their MAP scores in the fall. So we take a look at that. That happens in Tier 1 for every student in the middle school, as well as at the other schools. Then there are pieces of the curriculum that teachers can differentiate within the curriculum. So if there's a student who maybe is almost at grade level, not real struggling, but maybe isn't quite there, they have different resources even within the regular curriculum that they can use. They can pull them in during advisory time. They can keep them after school to do some extra work with them. If we find a student who, based on their data or just classroom performance, is really not performing at grade level, particularly in reading, they go to problem-solving team. Lots of interventions can be tried. If necessary, they can go on to Tier 2. And at the middle school, Tier 2 becomes the reading specialist, and at that point, the student can be assigned to the reading specialist, and they are pulled out of their related studies class. So for them, it's every day, 45 minutes, they get an extra 45 minutes of reading assistance for at least a trimester, if not a year, depending on how well they progress. If they don't progress there, or if it's a real severe reading problem, or if they're really struggling, they could go to Tier 3, which mostly right now at the middle school gets into our special services. They might have a direct instruction class for reading and for writing, which is a small group with a special education teacher. So that's an example of how reading is done right now. In math, we're working on it. And we're also finding that behavior is a problem that we need to be addressing at the middle school as far as how we do interventions at the different levels for the kids. But like I said, we're at the beginning of the process for those. Does that answer your question? So for students who are not challenged enough or who may be excelling, we are fortunate at the middle school to have different levels in math as well as in language arts. So in language arts, there's advanced language arts, there's also gifted language arts, and then the regular language arts. So if we find a student who maybe is appropriate to move up into advanced language arts, they would still be in a regular classroom of about 28, 26 kids, but have a more advanced curriculum. Also, within the regular curriculum, there are interventions that the teachers can do that's built into our textbooks for extension activities. So the regular classroom teacher has quite a bit of resources to extend or provide support for struggling students just even within that regular curriculum. So the way our curriculum is set up in math, also we have 3 different levels at each grade level. And in math, we're finding our kids are accelerating so fast. I have 6th graders in 7th grade math classes, and I have 7th graders in 8th grade math classes, and 5th graders that come over to 6th grade math classes. So we're extending things that way too for kids and taking the ceiling off of the math classes for them. Okay, 3 times in a year might be a little much, but they certainly can. We do a placement process starting in January through late winter, and hopefully get kids placed properly then for the next school year. But we are always open to discussions with parents, kids' performance during the year, as far as kids in regular language arts, might they need to go up to advanced language arts during the year. Math is usually pretty well set, but we'll advance a kid up if necessary, or we'll advance them back down too if necessary, because they really need to be placed appropriately so they can do their best and learn what they need to the most. As far as Tier 1 and 2, those can happen throughout the year depending on how quickly we can collect data.
And also this year in the math program, because we had, 4 students? You want to explain what we did with those 4 students?
I have 4 students who we opened a brand new math level for. It's called GTA, Geometry, Trigonometry, and Algebra. And those students had already gone through Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and needed to go either into GTA or over to the high school to pick up classes. But instead of sending them to the high school, either Mundelein or Stevenson, because they could have gone to either one, we opened up a new section. We only had 4 students in it this year, but it was an appropriate class that we needed to open, and the board and Dr. Taylor supported that because that's a pretty small class. But we have more kids coming up next year for it.
Yeah, we knew that you had to start somewhere, but at the same time, these students we needed to serve them, and it's the math teacher's done a phenomenal job with those students. So, again, trying to serve the needs of all the students regardless of where they're at.
I have a 5th grade, I'm a 5th grade parent. One of the things I was disappointed this year is about the math book available online. We were being told that it's going to be available, and we've been waiting, and finally I realized that it's more like a district office hiccup. Are there any such challenging issues that we can expect with the middle school this year that you are already aware of, that we might need to call the district office right away? It's no point in calling towards the end of the year. so that we will also not have disappointment and we can help the children better.
Dr. Zimmer on that one.
I understand how frustrating that has to be as a parent, because you go online and you expect the resource to be there. This year, with our new implementation of our new Harcourt series in 3.5, the difficulty was when the economy took a hit, Harcourt also took a hit. And sad to say, they laid off many, many people in that company. And so it's been very difficult then for us to connect with people. We get sent to Texas and we call up, and Eric Rauke has been very diligent trying to get this piece together. You will have much better luck with McDougall-Littell series, which we have going on in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. That series has been established now. We've had it for 2 years. Everything is online. It's up, it's running, it's good to go. But we are not giving up on the Harcourt piece, because that's a piece that we purchased that we need to get those services, and we are working on it. So just be a little bit more patient, and hopefully we'll get there. But we are definitely working on that.
I just had a similar question as the gentleman over there about how different reading or math levels are matched in the elementary school. And are there special teachers that are available to pull kids out if they're particularly gifted in reading or math? One other question was if you knew what the property tax rate would be for 2009.
We'll go to Andy first, and then we'll do the...
Well, the tax rate for 2008 is $2.43.5, but we have no idea what it will be for 2009. I suspect it, because property values are going down, it'll probably creep up a little bit more, but not a whole lot. But right now, for this year, it's $2.43.5.
And Carol.
At the elementary school, we are very fortunate, thanks to heavily in part to Dr. Taylor bringing a program to our attention when he came here 7 years ago, and our Board of Education, so that we do have a reading pull-out program. It is called Reading Recovery in first grade, where it's an intensive one-to-one instruction for some students and a group level for some students. But that being said, we also expect that differentiation to occur in our classrooms through the guided reading that we do with our teachers. So each student is given a test at the beginning of the year, a reading test, and the teachers determine what level that they're at. And then during their guided reading group, that student is being instructed at their level. So whether they're in the regular education classroom getting differentiation through their guided reading levels, either higher or lower, that occurs in the regular education classroom. But then we also have a qualification program for a reading program that we have, either groups or one-to-one if necessary, that happens at first and second grade. And that also happens at third, fourth, fifth grade for the reading program, and also at sixth grade. So that continues throughout. We also have an enrichment program at the elementary school. So if students are excelling, particularly in the areas of reading and math, then they can also be pulled through our enrichment teacher. Once they hit third grade, they have a gifted teacher, and they have to qualify for the gifted program for reading and math, and that continues into the middle school. For the math end, we have a new math program this year called Think Math. We, through the RTI process this year, have had some of our teachers differentiating instructions. Everybody's differentiating in the classroom, but we also have collaborated with our special education services department, and we have some help from them for including students in groups that maybe need some more basics in math. And then our enrichment teacher also helps with critical thinking, problem solving, stressing that, and improving that through our enrichment classes in math. So we get both ends of the spectrums being met at the elementary level as well as at the intermediate and the middle school. Okay?
I just have a question. I know that there is a waiting list in the preschool program, so I was wondering if there are any plans to open more classroom for that group. That's my first question. And my second question is, I have a daughter in the elementary school, and would like to know if in the way that you do assessments for the kids and identify those are in risk, if there is any assessment made to identify what are the talents of your kids. Because, if you, like research shows that if you reinforce and give more on the things that are talent, they will excel in general, and it will be easier for them to identify in the future in high school what is the way they want to take from that.
I'll address the first one and Carol the second. I'm assuming you're talking about the preschool at-risk program, the 3 through 5 program, not the early childhood, because the early childhood is a special education program, and we would service those needs. The pre-K program we started a couple of years ago. Once we completed the expansion at the elementary school, it's a program that we've always wanted to have. We just never had the space. This is a totally state-funded program. It's a grant that we received, I think, this past year around $120,000. So it is totally dependent on state funds, not district funds. We have expanded the program since we started it, but we're at the limit now that it will not go any further as far as any further expansion without additional funds from the state. And as far as next year is concerned, we probably aren't looking at an expansion of that program due to the financial condition of the state. And Carol, for the second question.
I'm going to go back to my previous answer in that all students are assessed at the beginning of the year in both reading and math. And at that time, if they're excelling at a level, we definitely want to identify that. And so even at the elementary level for the enrichment program, which is where we send them out to get them to excel, plus in the classroom teachers. We expect our classroom teachers to be differentiating in the classroom and challenging those students on a daily basis. But in addition to that, then our enrichment teacher actually gives them a qualification process for her program, and they need to qualify for that program through something we use called the KBIT. And it's a brief look at intelligence is basically what it does, and it sets them up for the gifted program in the intermediate school. So they can get both ends of that. So we do assess students and address their needs, whether they're on the high end or the low end. And so if they're excelling at reading, then they're getting that at their level. But we're also careful about the levels, because as the gurus came out and told us this year, even though children can read some kids can read at a 5th or 6th grade level, a first grader shouldn't be reading books at a 5th or 6th grade level. You have to make sure that they are addressing the 5 areas of reading, and so they should only be a couple of grade levels above, because the books aren't appropriate. So you have to make sure that the books that you're giving children are appropriate material for their age level, even though they're reading there. So our guided reading groups focus not on easy books. It's definitely challenging books for them, but also age-appropriate material. So we always have to be cautious about that, too. That was a real eye-opener for some of our staff this year, because we always have had high readers at Fremont since my early days here. And, we want to make sure that they're getting challenged at their level, but also that they're not missing comprehension or missing fluency or decoding or phonemic awareness, because some of them can read really high, but they can't tell us what the book's about. So we want to make sure that we stress that, too. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, maybe 2 more, and then we'll probably need to wrap it up here.
At this time, can you address any changes in administration for next year? I've heard talk from other parents, and as well as my children at the intermediate and middle school, so I just didn't know there hadn't been any formal announcements.
Well, there are some personnel changes that really are public knowledge with regards to some changes in the district at the intermediate and the middle school. And the district's moving forward to address the changes that have been brought about. And one more.
My question is in regards to the teachers themselves and their education. There's been mention of training with the new math program this year, and the comment that Harcourt Brace has hit financial times of trouble. concerns me that those resources would not be available for our teachers to access, for them to gain the knowledge they need to properly embrace those materials for their students. And then the second half of the question is, how do you, as a district, as a principal, look at your individual teachers and determine who needs additional training services to help them to excel to their best potential? So it's not just the students, but the teachers that need the growth.
Okay, Dr. Zimmer is going to.
Okay, this year let's start with your first part of your question, which was the hardcourt piece. Fortunately, our diligence has paid off, and although we're having trouble and struggling on the technology side, we have had hardcourt out to our district 4 separate times to do teacher training. So we believe when we get a program in place, it's going to be very difficult for teachers to use it the first year. And so we plan the in-services or the teacher training so that they're using it they get the training, they use it for a month, they come back, they get more training, they use it for a couple more months, and then they get more training. So it's ongoing so that our teachers are able to do that. So our diligence with that has paid off. It's difficult to get a hold of them sometimes on the phone, but our diligence has paid off. In fact, they actually sent us one of our reps from Texas. So they do have a commitment, but they've just shrunken their company down considerably. As far as our overall teacher training, we have many programs in place. We feel it's very important for our teachers to stay cutting edge and stay on top of instructional pedagogy. We send our teachers frequently to training that's offered by Lake County Educational Services, so they learn what the latest techniques are in teaching math and teaching writing and teaching reading. We also, all of our teachers are very committed to professional development. And if you look online or you look at our quality of teachers, everybody is highly qualified according to NCLB. And most of our teachers have master's degrees, and many of those are in the area of reading and math. So our teachers are a very, very well-educated group, and we have so many experts that sometimes they even offer us professional development. Throughout the year, we get 4 days a year, and those are probably, you're like, oh my gosh, my kids are staying home. It's another one of those institute days. But those are the days that we can really target in our professional development. So this year we brought trainers in during one of those 4 days to help us better dig down that MAPS data. So it wasn't just a bunch of numbers floating around, but the teachers actually saw how that data translated into individual instruction. So we spend time every year, we plan those days around our pieces. Other areas that we've had training in, guided reading has been quite big, and RTI this year has been a real major push for us to really understand that whole piece. Our teachers are encouraged to go back and get extra, education and pursue their degrees, and we really value that because we think a highly educated staff is really going to zero in on that instruction and help our kids do better. So we have a strong commitment to professional development. It's quite large in this district.
If you have a question that we did not address tonight, feel free to email me or any of our administrators, whatever's appropriate here, and we will email you back. And if we don't know it, we'll send somebody. We'll email it to them and get them to respond to you. But we're accessible at any time. But on behalf of the Board of Education, our administrators, I want to thank you, administrators. Great job. Thank you, board members, for being here tonight, and we want to thank you for your commitment and the value that you place in education, because that's what makes Fremont a great learning community, is our parents. And we need your help, because you're the number one teacher, and we're here to help, and we need your help. So thank you for being here tonight.